We are live.
Yeah,
Welcome to, yeah, we are. Welcome to Sako and the Moon horror podcast, where we are reviewing the movie Hush.
so we're gonna speak like
Today,
this the
we have
entire
a,
time.
yeah.
We're gonna do the whole movie hushed like this. So make sure you put like hashtag AMS, AM, whatever the letters are. Maybe we'll whisper all the time.
ASMR. Yeah, whatever yeah. Hi, Mint.
What's up? What's up, Mint? I'm gonna do this for like the next minute and a half. It's okay. This is because the movie is called Hush. Okay, so for real, like I do anything to like throw off Sako. It's my
Did throw off Sako.
It's my favorite thing to do on a live broadcast is find a way to throw off Sako. I love you, Sako. I do.
So we have a special guest. We have the wonderful and the prolific and the most amazing Renmeleon. Say hi, Ren.
Hey, welcome back. Thank you for having me again. I need more of this.
Yeah, we don't normally do it in the morning, so like coffee. Totally
the show
necessary.
is normally like at 1 o'clock. It used to be like just 1, but you know what? Life happens, and this actually is a pretty good time for us most of the time. So who knows? You might be getting a lot more 11 o'clock shows, and if you're not sure if you're going to catch us live at 11 o'clock or 3:30 or whatever that happens, now is a good time to hit the notification bell, set it to all, so that anytime we pop on, you're right there ready for it.
We never know.
I joked with you guys for months that I was practicing for like my segues and my plugging of things. I told you all I was practicing. This is what the practice does.
This is what the practice does.
See how easy I just smoothly just roll that in there? Yeah. Segway King. How you doing? It's a t-shirt. Oh, that'll be on my shop by like Friday.
Stickers.
That's your department. Because
Yep.
Ren does everything.
I do shirts.
Absolutely everything.
We got Sticker Pimp coming out.
That's right. Yeah, we do. We'll talk sticker pimp. Yeah, we will. All right. Sako's got notes. We'll let Sako do the Sako thing.
Okay. So when we do these movie reviews, we have a comprehensive critique system. There are 4 categories. Each category will basically determine whether or not we give that category a star. So there is a maximum of 4 stars. We go through production, we go through writing, we go through characterization, and we go through theme. And there are sub categories that will help us kind of flesh out the main category. So
And yesterday's episode, the one we did for part 2 of The Substance. It's a very good episode to watch. One, because we did it and we're dope. But secondly, because it really helps you get an idea of what we're doing with this rating system and how it compares to how we really feel about the movie. Because yesterday was odd because we went through category by category and gave it a star for each one, but it ended up being a 3-star movie because the ending just took us out, and we just felt like it shifted in tone, it shifted, and the message was weird, kind of how it was interpreted, and that made us kind of just review on how the system was judging accordingly. Like as we go through, was there anything wrong with the production? No. Was there anything wrong with the characterization or how the acting or the casting was? No. The writing was great. The theme was pretty self-explanatory and relatively clear. But sometimes in the midst of execution, even though execution is not part of any of our, like it's not a subcategory of any of our steps.
Cinematography, you know?
Yeah, but cinematography can mean... Was that your phone or mine?
Big Brother's watching.
Big Brother is watching. We haven't even covered 1984, but Big Brother is watching.
Yeah.
I think my phone's on silent. I think I did. I might have. Might not have. Who knows?
It's not me.
Probably not mine.
What's really fucked up is it wasn't mine either. So I'm literally right. It's right here. It's next to me, and it's on silent, so it wouldn't have popped up anyway. Beyond that, yeah, Elon, if you're listening, we didn't like this movie, The Substance, as much as you thought we did. Anyhow, that's not what we're doing here. But my whole point of all that, before we got way thrown off, was that understanding our system, watching The Substance Part 2 is a really good way to understand how the system goes. Because we can rate it 4 stars, but did you really execute it well? And that might have to be a bonus we throw into the mix somewhere, and how things are executed. Because that's what took down a star off of The Substance.
Makes sense.
Double check my phone, make sure it's off.
I don't think we're going to have any of that
today.
Any problem with that today.
This one's a pretty clean cut movie, guys. Like this is gonna be a good one. The real shift is gonna be how a third person's gonna grade this movie as we introduce a third person Renmeleon to this mix today. Ren, you saw the movie last night, right?
Yep. We watched it last night for the first time.
So, without getting any details, what do you think?
Not typically my genre, but I liked it. As a screenwriter, it was well done. So I kind of went into it with that, to be honest, for this kind of thing, because domestic horror sometimes will make me anxious. I had like the movie summary up on my phone, so I knew what was going to happen. So it's kind of cheatery, but I was there.
However you need to.
Yeah, horror is one of those genres that it's like romance. You go in there feeling lovey-dovey, one way or another. You're supposed to walk out feeling lovey-dovey. And with horror, with there being so many different subgenres, there's a different intention.
Yeah.
And with domestic horror, like we just talked about in the episode, it makes us uneasy because it's from a place that's supposed to be really secure.
Yeah.
And this movie is one of the reasons why we're reviewing it, is such an example of a person who felt super secure in her home and how easily that was disrupted.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to get into this movie more and more. But we have this third person. I wanted to get a general feel of what we're walking into as we're critiquing category by category. So lead us off with production, Sako.
Okay. Production. So first we talk about art direction. They obviously went to art school or film school. So good composition in each shot. I thought the lighting was really great considering the power was out for 2/3 of the movie.
There was a lot of dark. There was a lot of gray. There wasn't a lot of bright colors, kind of an comparative to The Substance, where there's a lot of vibrant colors throughout the movie. Hush already gives you a shh kind of thing. And I feel like the lighting and the color, particularly the color, was very hushed, very muted, all puns intended. And it was one of those situations where it is happening at night. It is happening mostly in the dark, but there's still enough light in all the right places at all the right times so that you know exactly where to focus, exactly where to look, when to shift here and there. It was done masterfully. Great job to Mike Flanagan.
I agree.
Makeup and props. Wicked mask for the killer.
Loved it.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Loved it.
It was so simple.
Yeah. Felt like it was homemade.
Exactly. It feels like the guy went home and made a mask. Like he didn't just go and
it's like paper mache. Yeah.
Yeah, like he plastered his own mask and it fit his face perfectly. It's like this guy, and I think that adds to the killer. Because as a horror fan, when you have a serial killer or something like that, I want to not like the killer, but respect the killer. You know, I want him to feel like a threat.
It's
Otherwise, why am I afraid of him? And I feel like this guy was ominous, and that mask that fit his face so well, it felt homemade. It felt like this guy was like he goes out to do this.
Yeah.
This
Speaks
is what
to
he
intention.
does. Yeah.
Speaks to intention big time.
And when he doesn't know them, he's not connected to the victims at all. That's even better.
I have to agree with Mint that the mask was great. Its expression, or lack thereof, it was kind of Mona Lisa-esque in that the expression seemed to change depending on what angle you were looking at the mask at.
And I like how the mask didn't become a character in its own right. I'm a huge fan of Scream. So I'm always referring to Scream. And Scream, the Ghostface mask itself becomes a bit of a character outside the person who is Ghostface. But because of how malicious this guy is, like the mask doesn't become a character in its own right. But if you saw that mask by itself somewhere in a store or on a shelf, you know exactly which mask that is and exactly what movie that is. There's no question.
Yeah.
So it's very distinct while being very bland. And I love that.
Somewhat believable killing. Yeah. And the wounds were the makeup for the wounds were excellent.
Yeah.
As far as cinematography, I feel like the shots on the wounds were just right. Like not too close, but not too far, you know, just enough to see the damage that's been done.
Yeah. And that's what needs to be done in a shot like that. You need to know what's happening. We don't need to dwell on it unless that is what you have to dwell on. If it's something getting infected or growing or getting worse progressively throughout your story, then yeah, you want to show that for an extended bit of time. Outside of that, like this movie did, you center it, you make it, you're like, this is what is happening. Okay, let's move on, and you keep it moving visually. Keep it moving.
Yep. As far as cinematography, the sound engineering and the score were amazing. For those of us who have been temporarily deaf, like that's what it sounds like.
That underwater kind of feeling,
where you can hear the blood flowing in your head.
Yeah,
like
100%.
No, I've never experienced that firsthand, but it felt like, as someone who's never experienced deafness to that degree, it feels legit. It didn't sound like this is just what I blindly think deafness sounds like, and you just cut sound. Now, you mentioned that, but you hear three things. You hear life is normal, and then you hear scenes like in the cooking scene of the opening where things are silent, which is how we learn that the character is deaf. And then you hear the water, the kind of whooshy sound in certain scenes. And the balancing between those, I feel like an amateur would have just gone to no sound.
Yeah.
And to utilize that sort of underwater swimmy sound is, I use the word masterful a lot because it's masterful. It was very well done. And to do a movie where you have a character that is deaf, understanding that sound is different from one character to the other is perfect. And it has to be done right to tell this story well. And I think Mike Flanagan did.
Yeah.
I believe Mike Flanagan is the guy who wrote and directed that movie, for those who didn't catch that.
Popper Knight says a lot of places where you would hear the guy screaming, like the first time she injures him, we hear the scream. But every other time, they didn't leave the audio in for him screaming because she wouldn't hear it. because the POV was so distinctly on her
Mm-hmm.
that we were experiencing her action scenes through her perspective.
And I think that was really important to do that. And we'll touch on point of view here in the third section. But yeah, not to spend too much time because we don't want to do a Hush part 2. But don't get me wrong, I could do an entire show on just fanboying about the movie Hush. But no, sound is important when it comes to a movie like this. It was so important. There's a scene near the end where she's waiting for him at the door, the knife, and he comes through the window behind her, and we're looking at her, and there's enough space so you can see what's happening behind her, and there's enough light and the use of shadow where you see the glass coming down. It's just like a light of shimmering. It's just like shimmering light at first, and then you realize, oh, that's glass, because we don't hear glass. You see that, and normally you would hear glass that comes with it, but we don't hear glass because, like you were saying, Sako, she wouldn't hear glass.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so it's just glimmering light, and then you realize, oh, that's glass breaking behind her. Oh, that's him coming up from behind her. Oh, she doesn't know he's there. And then he's just right there. And you go on that journey, and the fact that you can do that whole journey and with little to no effort outside of that, it shows how well that story was told and how well that scene was acted.
Oh,
how
yeah.
well it was portrayed.
Yeah.
And again, we're going to get into all of that section 3. Can't wait.
Is there any other comment about the production, Ren, that you noticed that maybe you would like to make note of?
Oh, I didn't know if we were going round robin because I'd have been piping in.
Jump in.
No, the sound definitely, and the vocal shift, like when you can hear him, when you can't, and just because we were talking about it last, is the ending where she feels his breath on the back of her neck, because I'm like he's crouching behind her, because I figured that was the skylight. I would have figured that anyway, despite the summary. And I told Val Popper Night, as soon as I saw the breath on the back of her neck, I'm like, oh, it's on now, kind of thing. But I loved her getting in his face, and literally like digging in her leg and writing on the door. The do it coward part was I loved the show of strength, and the decide. You could see the pivot point when she has all these vocals coming in,
the writer brain,
when she decides that she's because I recognize the writer brain hard, but it's very, you can see the shift when she decides that she's going to stand her ground, that running is not going to work. But production wise, the lighting was amazing. Sometimes I see these horror movies that everything is dark, and it's just like, well, if I can't see it, you just wasted millions of dollars because your lighting is crap, and you can't really tell what's going on. And they had the shadows and light coming in just in the right spot, and everything was visible, and which was huge. But 100%
lighting a dark film is not easy.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
To light it, I mean, we have troubles with that with Howard Hills, and I was actually planning on sometime reaching out to a couple of filmmakers of mine, friends of mine, to just like ask, like, how do you light a dark movie? Like, just curious, how do you light a dark film?
Yeah.
This movie will show you at least a good. If it's done right, it looks like this, because it's not black, it's not bright white, it's shades of gray.
Yeah.
And wonderful shades of gray.
Yeah. Stalemate, that's one of the things that I'm thinking about too, is because I do want to film it. It was originally my thesis script that I'm going to revise after the book's out, but the most of the stuff is in the house, and there's some very dark areas that I've got to figure out how that would be lit. So just to make notes on things. But
Yeah.
kudos to production. They did an awesome job.
Okay. Do we want to give it a star for production?
There's no
I
way I
vote
can't
yes.
give it a star. There's no way I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I vote yes.
Yep.
So next we talk about writing. First off, we discussed the dialogue. As Popper Knight mentioned, he was absolutely right. There are only 15 minutes worth of dialogue, so what is said needs to be said.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
There was no frivolous dialogue in this movie.
No, but the really important part is they well established early on that she can read lips. So you have the killer taunting her and tormenting her by saying, taunting and tormenting things without having to be like, he's got to get a notepad out and write a note down, or he's got to use Sarah's blood, or any of these other kind of almost tropey default kind of things. We established this early on, and this is one of the things I had about other movies. Establish something early on, and you can utilize it all the way through. Same thing if you're writing in your books. Establish something, if it's quirky or weird, just establish it as normal early on, and it's fine. This was established really well, so we allowed the killer to talk to Maddie, despite the fact that she was deaf, and I think that it helped things work because he's not going to talk her ear off, and she's not going to talk her own ear off. And like you said, Sako, everything was said that had to be said. It was necessary. It was very intentional.
So, also, yay ASL. It's not often you see that in a movie, unless it's about deafness.
Right. And kudos to Sarah for wanting to learn if you have a deaf friend or someone close in your community that maybe doesn't hear well and they use ASL, you know what? Learn a few phrases. Learn conversational ASL, something simple that says, hey, hello, so you can acknowledge them in a way that makes them feel seen.
Yeah,
that's just a good community.
Learning.
Relearning. It's one of the reasons I'm learning Spanish, and not because there's any particular, Spanish person I'm speaking person I'm trying to talk to, I'm learning English. Not because there's a particular Spanish speaking person that I'm trying to talk to, but I'd like to, and I just I think it's just more uniting of the world to learn another way of talking.
I have to agree. I have to agree with Popper Knight. They made Sarah made you care about her enough that it was terrible to watch her demise. And then you're pissed off when he and knocks against
that
the window.
Part probably was one of the most, there's two things that were really disturbing to me in that. Was the gratuitous use of her body was really disturbing. It tells you a lot about the guy because he's wanting that attention and he's not getting it, and he just keeps doing it. And if she'd noticed, he probably would have stopped stabbing her, but he's just poking at her literally just to get her attention and use her body against the door, and that bothered the heck out of me. The other part was how easily the boyfriend got tricked into thinking he was a cop, and that really, because
it took too long for him.
That crap happened.
It took too long for him to catch on.
Yeah.
It took the asking for the phone back and the earring.
Yeah.
Falling on the deck that he was like, nope, this is a problem.
This is sus. Yeah. I think he kind of maybe was a little suspicious of it with the flashlight, and him seeing the guy, and he kind of started to size him up, and then he shone the flashlight in his face again and distracted him. But yeah, just those two scenes in particular were really like, okay, that crap can be. That's the thing about domestic horror that really bothers me, is that shit can happen.
Very easy.
And how we get in those, safe spaces and kind of let our guard down. It's like that bang bang knock, or the knock knock bang that we had here at the house was kind of like, okay, I'm home, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm safe. And that kind of pulled me out of that a little bit. But yeah, just the writing and the storytelling and that kind of thing for that, and the production quality really lended it to being, me on both the edge of my seat and wanting to crawl under the covers.
It goes a lot to saying, we're both from Kentucky. Me and Ren are both from Kentucky, and there was the infamous McDonald's case that happened in Mount Washington, and there's a documentary about it on Netflix you can watch about that guy. I don't remember what it's called, but in short, some guy called posing as a police officer, claiming that one of the employees stole something, and he wasn't close enough. He needed them to do searches and do police work on his behalf, and they did it over the phone. And this happened not just in Mount Washington, Kentucky. This happened all over the country. This same guy was responsible for calling multiple places. And when you watch the documentary, they mentioned that he didn't call major cities. Like in this case, he wouldn't have called Louisville or Lexington. He called Mount Washington, because in these smaller places, yes, man, that place, that one, that's how close it happens. Right there in the comments, right there what Mint just said. That's how close. This goes to prove Ren's point right there. That's how close this is. That's how easy domestic horror happens. That's how close it is to everyone. And that's what makes domestic horror scary. Like I said, they didn't call major cities where people are just like, that's weird. They call small towns where there's a trust, like an inherent trust that is violated, because people have an inherent trust of authority figures like the police department, or politicians like the mayor, or like my daughter who's yelling in the other room. You have to acknowledge it when she's yelling like that. There are other people in the house. She's fine. But yeah, it's one of those things that it happens so easily. Like Ren was talking about, the guy just turned around the corner with a flashlight. No cop car, no other vehicle, by the way. That should have been the real hint. Yeah. There wasn't a second vehicle, like for him to have arrived in. Like the question of like, there's no car. How'd you get here? I would have asked that question.
Well, I think
that part.
I think they said they stole his car.
Did he say that?
The guy, I think the guy said,
when he made the call, he said he's out on foot.
Yeah, I want to say there was a mention that at some point in that dialogue that guy bum rushed him and took his car, kind of thing. At least that's what my brain filled in.
Because I remember that part of the dialogue, and it's ultimately not important, but it's to me, it's like these are the things that should have clicked, and I think it started to click for John, Sarah's boyfriend. I think it started to click for John, but again, like we said, too late.
He was speaking very
one of those things
confidently, and had the props and all the right blingo, and it was complete. If he had faltered and been kind of nervous, but he was on it as far as this is who I am. That
too speaks to the killer. Yeah. I love a good movie that can develop your killer so well. Because if you like superhero movies, or as I always say, it comes back to wrestling, your heel or your supervillain, whatever your bad guy is, your bad guy has to be bad enough mean enough, evil enough for me to believe that he's a threat that the good guy now has to actually overcome.
Yeah.
And as simple as this guy is, as simple as this guy was, he was just a dude with a crossbow. He held that position. Even later on, admitted, he's like, huh, I'd have lost that fight. Ooh, I was close. I'd have lost that fight. And that showed him recognizing his vulnerability as just a dude. He recognized
with a
his
crossbow.
fault. The dude with a crossbow.
Yeah.
Love that. We got off pace. We got off track.
No, we didn't.
We didn't really.
Yeah, the confidence can definitely fool
it
people.
It goes
man.
into how well written this movie really is.
Yeah.
And how well performed this movie really is. It's one of the reasons why I love it so much. I think it's one of the reasons why Men said it doesn't get the credit it deserves. It really doesn't. The fans of Hush love Hush because Hush is this good. But it's not going to be Candyman level, Scream level. It's not going to be Saw level. But it should be. This deserves a lot more hype than it gets.
Yeah.
And the writing of this movie, as we described, all these little parts. Remember, all these things that we were just talking about were written. They were designed that way. What we saw on screen was in a script somewhere. The screenwriter wrote this down. That's how good this writing was. I'm aiming to be at that level Sunday.
So, another point, we're talking about plot, obviously, right now. But Popper Knight mentioned he was absolutely right. The exposition about Maddie was on the back of the book. We never saw the front cover.
No, you briefly see the front cover, which is Midnight Mass, which is the Netflix series. If you think it's a coincidence, it is not. It is the same production people, same director, same writers.
Movie inside the movie.
Yeah, this is Midnight Mass. The series on Netflix is based on the book written by Maddie Young, and this is Maddie Young's story. This is the book.
That's
she wrote,
amazing.
and she was working on. She's working on book 2. This is what. So she wrote Midnight Mass, and she's working on book 2. I forgot what it's called because it's on her title headers.
Yeah.
I forgot what it was, but so yeah, Midnight Mass, which I'm going to go back and watch. I'm going to go on Netflix. I'm going to start watching Midnight Mass because apparently it's mentioned. Maddie is mentioned at some point, but I gotta watch it at some point.
Also, if you haven't hit the thumbs up, please do so right now.
Hey, Nicole.
It tells the algorithm that you want to see content like this, and it will push our video out to more viewers. So
feel free to share it with people.
Yep.
Because if they haven't seen this dope ass movie, like oh boy, if they haven't seen Hush, they need to.
Yeah, they convinced me to watch it, and this is not typically my genre.
Right. And you know
it was good.
You know what made people watch this movie? This video. Watching all this would make them watch it. And if they don't really mess with domestic horror, we did all the watching for them. Share it with them. Like, you need to know about this movie. Listen to them talk about it. Listen to Sako on the Moon with Ren. Talk about this movie. There you go. I don't think so. No, I don't think anyone does.
Nope. Yep. Traditional slasher meets domestic terror. Pacing. I thought it was appropriate for the story told.
Yeah.
It was, and I like movies where the pacing and books where the pacing is on point. You know, like pacing is so important to me.
Yeah.
And I felt like the pacing was realistic. I felt like there was no downtime. What the little downtime there was,
very little
like they filled it. They filled it with her journey through this altercation, which I thought was expertly written.
Yeah, any little lag that there wasn't long enough to make me anxious, like get up, kind of thing. It was just enough time for her to catch her breath and kind of refocus. Because there were times when I'm like, oh my gosh, she doesn't realize how much noise she's making. It was a big thing. But I know that, and I'm like that with pacing, is that, shorter chapters to keep momentum going and that kind of thing. And I thought the pacing on this was really good.
Yeah. And there was enough of the things that what the beautiful part was when you're focusing on Maddie, the killer who was in the credits just as the man, that he was just lurking about. He's close. So even if you're not seeing him close, he's close. He's just toying with her. He's somewhere nearby. And so it always feels like he's nearby. And that goes into production and how well they performed overall in this. Yeah, he didn't actually have a name. In the credits, he's just called the man.
Yeah. I like that they didn't make him important enough to give him a name, because I feel like that humanization distracts you. But because then you start thinking about somebody maybe that has the same name, or it pulls you out of it, I think. So I like that they didn't give him a name. But the way that she was tracking him through all the windows and everything, I thought was so important, and it gave it that little, because when she didn't, like, if she wasn't looking out the window and tracking him, I was like, where is he? Because I'm thinking in my head, in this kind of a situation, what would I do? And I literally was going through the exits and, okay, if this ever happened to us, what's my options? And of course I've got like blades all over the house, but still I'm like, this movie made me want to buy a gun. It just,
and that's a great sign of a good domestic horror movie.
I'll probably get a bow.
Get a crossbow.
No, you saw how much trouble she had loading that crossbow.
That is one big thing. I used to have a pistol crossbow that was 80 pounds.
Whoa!
And it had a foot thing on it that you literally had to pull. There were times I couldn't pull it, and that was back when I was lifting weights.
That is
that big.
Whatever weapon you have to defend your house,
very
accurate.
Genuine, accurate. The frustration and how much it hurt to try and pull that back. And it also was like, I don't remember seeing him load it, but it gave me an idea that it was easy for him because of his strength. So that just kind of like, showed me where she is and where he is as far as,
show, don't tell.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
It's that golden rule. And there are some times when we as like panelists for somewhere, or we do this show like this, or we talk about show, don't tell in our films, in our writing. This is an example of show, don't tell.
Yeah.
Show that he can do this real quick and easy. Show that she is struggling. Now he is stronger than her without us having to say, I'm stronger than you, blah, 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 blah. Show, don't tell. It's so much more powerful. It's so much more impactful. It does more work.
Yeah.
Trust us.
I appreciated the, my my master's is in screenwriting, creative writing, screenwriting, specializing. And that has helped me so much in my fiction work, not just screenwriting. So I took a lot of that, what I learned, and related into my writing. So when they did her backstory on the cover of the book, I was like, I like this already, but just, the little details was what I was looking for. And that was a lot of it.
So speaking of distractions that took you out of the story, I watched it on Tubi. And Tubi, so I watched it with Mint last night, and the commercials would take us out of it immediately.
The timing. The timing, like the first
timing.
thing where he was about to stab her at the door, that the ad went in, and there's no warning, there's no countdown, there's no nothing. So he's about to kill Sarah, and it gets to break, and it's in Spanish, and we're just sitting there laughing, and I'm like, well, that was well
done. It did not break into Spanish for us, but it was Fox.
So funny.
We had a lot of Fox.
Oh my gosh.
Which is weird, because I watched it on Tubi just last night, and I didn't have any ads.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, well, we watched it, didn't sign up for anything, newsletter, or any of that crap. So, we just came over to check it out, and I knew there'd be ads, but I was not prepared for that. And it was like, we're gonna just, it's like, you're at the top of the roller coaster and you're about to go down, and you get hit with Ronald McDonald. It's just like, what the hell? That was scarier than the rest of the movie, was these ads. Oh my gosh.
Okay. So do we want to give it give the writing a star? Yes. Okay. Characterization. So the casting. Mwah.
Oh yeah. Everyone felt like the people who live on your block. You didn't have like that someone who just looked
despite how beautiful she was.
Absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
She's absolutely gorgeous. But it didn't matter to you. Like, you weren't watching this and like, ooh. But she looks like the woman who lives 3 houses down from you. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And Sarah looks like, because they weren't overly made up. Their hair wasn't overly fixed. Things didn't look like overly done. They just look like people who live nearby.
John was the only one I recognized as an actor.
Yeah. And I love that. How it was, that goes more to the makeup and the minimizing of the makeup, all things considered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there's only like 5 characters in this whole movie.
The whole thing.
There's only 5 characters. 6 if you count Greg.
In one location.
Right.
Craig,
6 if you count Craig. And Craig bothers me.
Yeah.
Craig
they
bothers
were so good. They were so good with Chekhov's gun a whole bunch of times. But Craig never panned out.
I feel like Craig was added.
Squash or Squish?
Squish.
Squish mentions Craig.
She's Squish.
And says, it's been a year.
She's Squish. Maddie is Squish to Sarah. No, to Max. Max calls Maddie Squish. But Max is the sister. So there's Maddie, who's our main character. There's the man, who's our antagonist. Sarah's the neighbor. John's the boyfriend of the neighbor. Max is the sister, who we see on a Zoom call. And Craig is apparently the ex-boyfriend from a year ago, who texts her and calls her back when she calls him back, and they have no conversation. He basically doesn't exist.
Yeah. But she makes a reference to him when she's writing, and by the way, her writing mirrored on the glass with the lipstick. Amazing.
Really well
yeah.
Because I can't think like that. I felt like they gave her like agency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She wasn't a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And
it made her more human to me, having that, do I call them? Do I not call them? Do I call them? Do I not call them? And they call back, and it's like, no, I don't want to deal with this.
Right. And I didn't mind that. I just wish it actually played more of a part in the movie. I'm not super upset. And I get what you're saying. And you did make me think about that without the establishment of the ex, he couldn't have realized that the boyfriend was a lie. And and that makes a lot more sense. I would have liked that better. It would have been an extra body, or
yeah,
and that's fine. Like, they don't have to get back together at the end, which you would expect in a horror movie, whatever. But he could just be a body. Like, that's fine. But I just really wish he'd have done something. We had some sort of something, even if it's just like
Craig calling back while
and talking to the
killer.
man.
Yeah,
that'd have been great. And then I was like, oh, well, clearly you've moved on and something.
yeah.
And now she's like, oh no, option right there, something.
I just feel like it would have been too distracting to have him in there as more of a part of it. I thought it was just enough to make her feel human, regular relationship problems.
That I wish he didn't have. I wish he didn't have a name.
Yeah.
It could have been like, have you talked to him? No.
Douchebag.
Right. Anything. Just X.
My ex.
Or do not answer.
Or my ex. No. Some kind of note call him.
Yeah, just something.
Like,
just
why
something.
was he still in her phone? But that was a kind of a, like I said.
She hasn't let go. She clearly hasn't let go.
Yeah.
Which all that makes sense. But I feel like we give a lot of attention to Craig for a period of time. As things are being established and the things are being set in place. Mm-hmm. And I just wish we had done something else with it.
Yeah, man. I agree.
Possibly.
So, I too was expecting Craig to come up more. Like, she obviously uses it to try and deter her assailant. But it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe Craig is the reason she moved out into the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. All of this is possible. And I'm up for any of those things. I would have been down for any of those things. Just wish that they came.
Small blessings for FaceTime. Yeah. Also an ad for Mac.
Right, the whole thing, Apple phone, Mac, integration, but it just kind of shows how a person with some sort of handicap would have their house integrated like that, different things connected so that they had options. And it shows the different avenues that she could easily have taken away and how quickly you can be vulnerable in those moments.
Yeah.
What do you think about the consistency of things? How consistent do you believe the film went from start to finish?
Believable on Maddie, like believable wounds. She did not forget that she was wounded.
Right.
And not so much for the killer. He took a claw hammer to the arm, and he still used that arm almost exclusively. And still cocked his crossbow, and
I'll actually have to go back now and watch the scene with which hand she used for the pesticide when he crunched her arm in the door, because it was pretty bad. You could hear bones crunching. You could hear, in the overlay, and was really messed up. So it's like I don't remember if she used it. Now y'all got me wondering. Now I'm gonna have to go back and watch it just to look for the details.
Always watch a horror movie twice.
Yeah, but it's that kind of consistency. With that, I thought it was pretty smooth. But I agree with, you take a claw hammer to the arm.
You're not using that
arm. I don't care if unless you have the one disorder where you can't feel pain.
That's we never can. We haven't.
But he definitely can, because that dagger to the knee, the knife to the knee. Oh, I felt that. I have a sprained knee right now. I felt that. But yeah, otherwise I think they paid attention to all the right details.
Yeah,
with all of it. So I think that was.
I like how with the killer, he went from. If you look at it from his point of view, it went from being him versus Maddie, in my opinion, to him versus his own ego. Mm-hmm. And he lost this fight solely because he chose to fight his own ego.
Yeah.
And he lost. Yeah. He lost to himself.
Plus his crossbow, dude.
But he had.
That was a little too easy.
He had Sarah. Dead rights. Got her. He had John dead to rights. Didn't, and he just lucked into winning that fight.
Yeah.
Maddie, he walked in on her from behind, was right there.
Yeah.
Could have just took her out right then and there.
Yeah.
We would have been over in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
He'd have had his kill. He'd have got when it's done, but he was starting to fight his own ego.
It wasn't about the kill, though.
It wasn't. And that's what I said his fight was with his ego then, is what he was getting from that. The thrill of the hunt, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that's probably why they did the crossbow, is because that's typically a hunter's tool.
Yeah.
And that's not something
and
that
I don't feel like that was really utilized or showed off with Sarah, but we don't know what the struggle was prior to getting to Maddie's. So that wasn't part of the thing. So he may have hunted down Sarah, but he surely didn't put that much attention that he put, because he was ready to dedicate the entire night to hunting down Maddie.
Yeah.
And we realized that there wasn't that much time between Sarah leaving Maddie's house and when Sarah came back on the porch. So he clearly didn't spend that much time coming after her.
I at first wondered if it was the boyfriend, because she said something about the boyfriend being there in an hour, and it's like, you don't know how long these people have been together. You know, this is the first time he's coming over to the house. You don't know, and then he shows up
he gets off of work. Yeah.
So, yay, celebratory.
Another advertising for Matt.
Not really, but so at first I was like, okay, is it the boyfriend? But Sarah didn't show any recognition as to who that was.
Right.
I didn't catch anything from Sarah with that. And the homemade mask really made me feel like, okay, this guy's invested in this role and in
great.
Oh, the marks on the marks,
terror in somebody. Mm-hmm.
On the crossbow.
This is what he does.
This is the thing he does. Yeah.
And you can see that in all the preparation. So when you're writing and you think your killer out, because you really have to think your killer out. What is his advantages? What are his disadvantages? What is his personality going to be like? How will he sway the protagonist, the main character? All these things you have to really kind of flesh out. And he was ready.
Yeah.
And I love this killer for that reason. He was prepped. This guy isn't just someone who's like chanced into a kill. This guy was a killer through and through to the bone. This is what he enjoyed. And he met his match because he didn't think she was up to snuff. He thought he could take advantage of her disadvantage. And that just reminds us that regardless of what people might call a handicap or a disadvantage, that doesn't put you out. You're still just as capable, sometimes even more capable. So don't discount those who have a handicap or a disadvantage. They can still kick your ass and fight.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Let's see. POV.
Popper Knight.
Maddie. Oh, Popper Knight mentions the mask.
Yeah, the kind of stand there and pull the mask off. That was a brilliant.
The moment you saw that scene, she's like, "I didn't see your face," and he's like, "Oh, you didn't, huh? Okay,
here you go." And that was just.
And now you have.
And it was janky. You could tell he had this thing like form fitted to his face because took him a minute to pull it. It wasn't just here we're gonna pull this off this way. It was he had to go through the mechanics of actually pulling this thing off. And great. That was brilliant. That really definitely it reminded me of Moriarty in Sherlock, in the Cumberbatch Sherlock, the guy that played Moriarty. That intention, okay, you want to play that, this is how it goes, we're changing the rules, but I'm still in control. Yeah.
Just a quick aside, connection to what Popper Knight said in that last comment. How long he's been doing this to people. What I love is what they didn't do in relation to that comment. There was no news on the TV. There was something like, 44 more people have been found dead in their homes, or there was no newspaper clipping. There was nothing to set it up or to throw in that he's a serial killer, she might be a victim next. A lot of movies do that, and I don't mind when they do.
Yeah.
The fact that this one doesn't is so good. It's
they didn't waste the time doing it.
Exactly. Like you're like, I'm gonna make this killer, I'm gonna put him out there so well, I won't need the newspaper clipping. I won't need to have the news on with the closed captioning or whatever. I don't need, oh, did you hear about what happened down the road? You don't need any of that. All that setup, you didn't need it. They showed the hatch marks on the weapon. They showed the attention he put into the. We showed, didn't tell. I'm telling you, you can do so much more by showing and not telling. I'm ready to vote.
POV. Maddie and her writer brain.
That was accurate.
So
accurate. Having the 7
multiple endings. Oh,
and then that happens during the third act.
And I think that's why she was smiling at the end, because she finally had the end of her story.
Probably.
That's what I got from it. It's like
that's what I got from it too. Yeah.
But definitely accurate. Yeah, the perspective shift.
Because when
the perspective shift.
And the way they pulled it off, they didn't cut or do anything weird with the image. They didn't put like a fuzzy like dream perspective or nothing. They just let it happen, let her get caught and die, and just like, see, that didn't work. And you're like, oh, okay, because that was almost like a jump scare where she like just turns her head and it's like, that didn't work. And you're like, oh shit, she's talking. Wait, what's happening? And now you're like feeling out what they're doing with them. Like, okay, this is good. I love how we're setting this up, and we're now taking this reference to Writer Brain made earlier. Again, we established it early. It came back here. Chekhov's gun, it's always mentioned, and it came back and came back.
But she had a voice, because she did mention that.
Yeah,
that sounded like her mother.
Voice. Yeah, I thought that was a good touch too, because I liked Sarah for asking that question. It's like, does it sound like a small child? Does it sound, so?
And it sounds like the kind of thing that if someone who's never experienced it would be curious about, but maybe not be bold enough to ask.
Yeah. She's a redhead, so I figured she's asking the important questions. But I liked, God how they redheads. Made her. I like how they made her likable. Yeah. She was nosy enough to be funny, but not, and she was interested, and she went the extra mile to learn ASL and, all that. So it was exceedingly heart-wrenching when she got killed. And how she got killed.
So brutal. And it was like, and then what makes that kill scene any different, if the person in the house was any other character, pick your favorite final girl from any other movie, Sidney Prescott, I'm always talking about Scream. Sidney Prescott would have turned around, she would have looked, she would have been like, and whatever else. But the fact that Maddie was Maddie and she was deaf, all of the, just, you're right there. You're right there. Yeah. And your help, your savior is right there.
Yeah.
And nothing.
Sarah screaming, "See me." Like, if you've ever been out somewhere and you're trying to get somebody's attention and you're just like, hey, over here, it's like, turn around, come on, turn around.
They can't hear you if you yell.
That
she can't hear you if you bang on the glass. Nothing you can do can get her attention.
I'd have broken the damn door.
Around. And she still wouldn't have noticed. She still wouldn't have noticed.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of prove that getting through the door would have been a pain in the ass, because he takes that
crowbar.
That's the only thing I didn't sit with me. That was out of the whole movie. That was the only thing that didn't sit with me, was why would she have that kind of glass? That's just, he should have just been able to smash and
if it's double pane.
But it was like pain. It was tempered bulletproof glass or something, because it had
did
this
seem a little off, but
it would,
because the glass upstairs was clearly not that durable.
Yeah,
but it was just a regular window, so
and the skylight.
But a skylight, you would think you almost
And
want
the
to be
old
tougher,
crank windows. Oh my
you wouldn't want
gosh.
hail or anything, the weathering to come through. But
Yeah.
it's a thing. I honestly thought he
Yeah.
would break through at one point, and
Yeah.
he didn't. I was kind of surprised that they didn't let him just break through. But
Yeah.
it also bought her time. It did buy her time.
Yeah.
It did.
I mean, it
buy
was
her
a
time.
device, means to an end. But after the second hit, I would have just kicked in the door.
Do we want to give characterization a star?
Yes.
I'm going to say yes.
Yes.
I will too.
Okay. Last but not least, we talk about theme. The message. Don't underestimate the lady in her own kitchen. The hornet spray.
That was amazing.
I think even more so.
Cheering.
Even deeper than, like, for example, you might automatically take it as don't underestimate somebody with a disability or a handicap. But I think the deeper message is don't underestimate yourself.
Yeah.
With a disability or a handicap. She very well could have just surrendered. There was a point where she was even considering.
She almost did.
You have no options. You can't run, you can't hide, and you can't wait. You're dead either way. So what's left? And for a lot of people, if you don't have that inner strength, that inner motivation, that's it. You're just gonna pick one of those and go. She did not. And she showed everyone, regardless of what that disability or handicap or whatever that thing is, that thing that you feel like holds you back in society, it doesn't have to hold you back. If you determine that it doesn't, it will not. There is a way to push through. It might be a harder push. It might be harder for you to pull that crossbow back, but you can get it eventually. And she showed. That's the greatest message I can grab out of that movie.
Where do you think her pivot point was? Was it when she was cradling her hand and she was laying on the floor and then she shifted and just went into, like, the do it coward? Or was it, I think it was before that when she was doing the voices thing and they said, kill him. That was the...
I think it was
somewhere between those two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she had to realize you can't run, you can't hide, and now you're wounded and you can't wait because you'll bleed out. She realized that there was no other option but to kill him.
Yeah.
And it's like, do I have the strength to do so? Do I have the capacity to defeat this guy? This guy is running around. He's got access to weapons. He's got me surrounded. I don't have anything, and I can't hear where he is when he's approaching me. And that didn't hold her back in the end. She still overcame. And she, at the end of that,
said she went fighting when she was typing to her family.
Yeah.
She knew she wasn't going to win that fight.
Yeah, died fighting kind of thing. And I noticed that she knew he was banging on the, he was trying to break in. And she didn't bother to check. I don't remember seeing her check.
No.
So she knew the glass wasn't gonna break. So that makes me think, okay, maybe that would my brain was like, okay, maybe that rationalizes she had special glass or something. But it's I was hung up on the door thing for a while. But overestimating your safety, I think, was... because we all get to the point where I know I do too, where this is my home, this is my sanctuary. I have wards up, I have weapons all over the house, I have a baseball bat near the door. Somebody breaks in, but honestly, I was pulled out of that with the knock knock bang, and it really made me think about, okay, I used to be on high alert or on, not in a bad way where you're stressed out all the time, but I'm a mom. And since my daughter moved out and I don't have that other little person that I have to protect, my mindset got out of that. And so now it's like I'm at home with my husband and nothing's going to happen kind of thing. And it's like, no, that is not how this works.
Yeah.
But being isolated out in the woods is even.
Cabin in the woods, always bad.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that, definitely don't underestimate people, disability or not, and don't overestimate your safety. Always have a plan B kind of thing.
Yeah. That's a good one. I'll ask this question because it's one of the things that we were critical of yesterday with the substance. Do you feel like there was a critical tone shift somewhere from beginning to end of this movie? Either of you?
No.
Mm-mm.
I don't think so.
I
felt like it was very consistent in as far as, especially comparing it to the substance. Like there was no shift.
No. You locked in for this ride and you followed this ride all the way out. You were on this road all the way through from beginning to end, from point A to point B. And there were some bumps and some divots, maybe some curves, twists and turns, but this was the same road we were on from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. And that helped me stay in position. Has helped me stay in focus.
I think once she decided to take a stand, that accelerated things for me, as far as it upped the ante, sped things up. But everything was consistent in the writing and in the production quality and in the overall theme of it. And I didn't feel like there were any, like, not distractions, but they honed in. It was pretty tight.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing.
I love that there was a time frame, a very obvious time frame. Like, this movie will take place in the span of tonight. So it helps to stretch out time in a way. Little things can happen at very points of time. That helps create the tension that I think stayed present throughout the entire movie. It helped maintain that tone, helped maintain that mood. Because you just wanted May to make it, but there's points in time where your first watch through, you're like, ooh,
maybe she won't. Yeah,
I don't know, because
nor did she.
Because Ren mentioned it when she wrote it down. Died fighting. She did not think she was making it.
Yeah.
As far as Maddie was concerned, this was the night she was going to die, and she was like, I'm going to lose this fight, but I'm going to go down fighting. So I think there was, again, maybe two shifts. One where she thought, I'm going to go down fighting, even if it's my last breath. And then a point where it will not be my last breath. So I think there might have been two different shifts there in her perspective, to answer a question you had earlier, Ren. Maybe that's kind of what I was thinking. I think that explains a little bit better.
And so I felt like the mood was very urgent. It was aptly paranoid. Like how she tracked him through the windows.
That was great. That was brilliant.
And did diversions, and he fell for them hook, line, and sinker.
I'm surprised he fell for that light in the cracking
flashlight.
Yeah, because the light didn't move, and I feel like it wouldn't have been her, because she would be moving as she tried to run away,
and she wouldn't be pointing it back at him anyway.
Right. So I feel like he was, again, this is kind of where I feel like he started having a fight with himself, and he wasn't thinking. He's already written her off. Like, I figure at a certain point he wrote her off. Like, she's an easy target. It's just a matter of me toying with her and getting her when I get her. So these little things he allowed himself to fall for these dumb tricks because he's like, she's not going to be smart enough to outsmart me. I'm too good. And again, that's when he started fighting his ego, and eventually he lost. Never fight your ego; you'll lose every time.
Yeah, because the car alarm, I don't think it's necessarily he fell for it. It's just the freaking blaring noise. He was just done hearing it, shut it off, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was necessarily that he fell for anything with that. But the flashlight was kind of weird. Yeah.
I didn't think so, because she didn't like she threw it in a way that it tumbled, and it just so happened to land so that it was facing him.
Yeah.
So he knew how far he had to go, but he didn't go all the way because he was right there when she like went on the roof and
yeah, because she was on the roof
the gutter.
She threw it. Yeah, she was on the roof when she threw it, and I know his back was turned and he didn't see the tumble thing because that would have dead giveaway. But yeah, them making it so that she just barely missed. Like he came up to it, she got that crank window. I was like, oh no, I hate those things. And just missing the time, and the pacing was great, but it wasn't the pacing that made me anxious, is the fact that it was slow enough to add to the paranoia. And because you don't have time to, it feels like if it's too rushed, because I've seen movies where they just rush the pacing on it, and it's just like, okay, that could have been slower. I grew up on Hitchcock, so slow and out of the corner of your eye is the way to do it.
There's a wrestling quote that I won't go into because it's drawn out, but because everything comes back to wrestling. One of the things that they're always telling you in wrestling is to slow it down, because things that happen in the ring happen really quick. They happen a lot faster than you think. And there's a lot of interviews that you can get. You can see where wrestlers are talking about how they moved too quickly to really draw everything out of it. Because it's a live stage performance, right? You're playing to a stage, to a room full of people, and to a television audience, and you want to draw them into what's happening, right? So you have to slow it down to give them time to draw in what's happening, time to drink it all in, and then you execute. And that's the same thing in film. Like what we were just talking about here, things happened slowly. Took time. It's like, is it going to happen? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's about to happen. It's about to happen. Oh, did it happen? It happened. Okay, cool. And that's where the anxiety comes from. And in the domestic horror, that anxiety is key. Like that anxious feeling in domestic horror is what gets you. That is the goal, the intended feeling, and that it's done so well.
That dread.
That dread.
Okay, backstory. I have a bit of trivia.
Oh boy, here we go.
Ooh.
So, Mike Flanagan didn't want the film to be pure silence, so he added various ambient sounds such as an ultrasound machine.
That's why it sounded familiar.
That's
okay. That's the warble with the yeah, that makes 100% sense.
I didn't immediately pin that as ultrasound, but now, like Ren, once now I know, like, yeah, that's what that was.
Yeah, we had a heartbeat teddy bear at one point, and that's part of the sound that they use is how you hear the heartbeat through the ultrasound. Yeah.
So Mike Flanagan, the director, and the co-writer / star Kate Siegel are a married couple, which I didn't know. And they conceived the storyline for Hush while on a dinner date in 2014. And
there's a conversation.
That's when you know you met your soulmate right there.
Yeah.
They wed in February of 2016.
That's crazy.
I think that's the year that movie came out was 2016.
Yep, sure.
That was a fast production then. How long did it take to make that movie?
18 days.
Wow.
18 days it took for them to film the whole thing, start to finish.
And this is why
to film.
You can do anything if you have technology.
But it helps. It's one of those things where one of the things that we talk about all the time with the film group is budget, money. And it's a necessary evil when making a production of whether it's a book or a film or whatever. And because, you got to pay for cover art and pay for editing because we pay our artists around here.
Yes.
And so, yeah, money is always a conversation, but it helps if you tell a story that's simple. We mentioned this is one location. Yeah, we never go to Sarah's. We never leave the house. We never leave the woods. It's inside, outside, same house. So you rent a house, you own a house, you just get an Airbnb, whatever it is, you get your location, do the most you can there. Saves you on time. It will save you on money. And when you realize there are ways to cut costs without impacting your story, then you can focus on storytelling. And one of the things that you can tell in watching this movie, they put a lot of effort into storytelling. The show Don't Tell that we keep talking about. They put a lot of energy into that. Because there's certain things you put in the script that don't show up until you're on set, because the director does that. And what shots to get, what B-roll to get, what small things to get. That's director. That's directing.
Storyboard.
Dialogue. That's writer. This is directing. That's writer. These two work together. When it's the same person, it's gold almost all the time.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that 18 days. I'm floored by that. But when one of the things they impressed on me the hardest, and I do a lot of webinars with Screenwriting You, and this is something that they pitch with that a lot, is if you're pitching to a production company, the less locations you have, the better, because of budget, because of the necessary evil. So if you have to hire in a bunch, you got to pay your actors, you got to pay your crew, and there's so many expenses with crew and everything else.
If you shut a place down, you have to compensate them for lost business.
Yeah. Not to mention, weather could affect it, and you have more things you have to work around. And, so if you're in one location, you're not having to pay for travel for people. You're not having to pay for the venues. You're not having to pay for, all that. So I thought it was brilliant that it was done in one location and they utilized every aspect of it. The roof, all of it.
Under the porch, on the roof, the backyard, the front yard, the porch, the living room, the kitchen, the tree, all of it.
And 18 days speaks to the ability of these actors.
The plan.
How many takes would it have taken?
Yeah. I'd be interested in hearing more behind the scenes, and I definitely want to get a copy of the script.
I'd love it.
Because I do that.
Let me double check. I might have a copy.
Okay.
Let me double check. I don't know if I have this one or not.
Yeah, because I always study the movies that I really enjoy. I always snag a copy of the script.
I try to hunt them down. It's so hard to find a good clean copy of the script online, especially for free. But read your math. Like, read your work. If you're a basketball player, watch film. If you're a wrestling fan, watch old matches. If you're a screenwriter, read scripts and watch movies. I like to watch movies while reading a script because then you get to see what got cut and what didn't, and how the cut parts fit into the movie, how things were organized, how things were ordered. The menu is a good one to watch and read at the same time. Just throw that out there.
By the by, we covered the menu in the first season. There is a playlist with all of our movie reviews, and you can find the menu. I think it was the first one that we did.
One of the first few we did, yeah. It was a good one, because it's a great movie. It's a fantastic movie.
It was. Okay, so for the theme, do we give it a star?
Yeah.
Hush.
Absolutely. This was clearly going to be a 4-star movie.
Yeah.
We knew it was going to be 4 stars when we started And now that we're at the end, yes, we have confirmed that.
And you converted me, I'll admit it.
But
Not maybe to all horror movies, but this one was really...
This one specifically.
Yeah.
And it goes to show, and like, again, I refer to The Substance because we just recorded part 2 yesterday. But The Substance, when you kind of look at it on the surface, was a clearly 4-star movie. As we went through it, it was clearly a 4-star movie. We ended up giving it 3 stars because sometimes you have things that just don't click, they don't work, and they hang on you too much to let it go. And that's what happened with The Substance yesterday. Great movie. Do not let a discount on stars encourage you to not watch it. If there's a movie that we give 1 star to, go out and watch it anyway, because you might love the part that we can't stand. Things don't sit the same with Ren as they do with me. So go back, watch those movies. Watch the movies that we vote badly on. Watch the movies we vote good on. Go watch film. Have your own opinion of things. Please.
And tell us in the comments, like, let us know how you felt about that movie. Or if you have suggestions as to movies that we should watch, tell us.
If there's a movie out there that you think we're going to love, please tell us in the comments. Or you can email us at sakoandthemoon@gmail.com. If there's a movie you think we're going to hate, absolutely hate, tell us in the comments and then email us at sakoandthemoon@gmail.com. I want to see the movies that you think we're going to hate. I want to see the movies you think we're going to love. Because, again, this channel, our show in general, is directed towards helping the independent do better at what we do. That's what we are. We're independent artists. We're independent writers. We do things for us. And sometimes we need that support from us. I get a lot of value over being shown what I've done really, really well and all the praise or whatever. But I get even more value out of being shown and told what is done poorly or could easily be done better. So if you're a filmmaker and you've got a film out there and you'd love us to review it, give us a call. Let us know. We might even set it up to get you on here with us. And then we can review all this in person, like right here. We can do it with you. Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. We'd love to feature you.
Sure would. Anything that helps another independent get their voice out there, yeah, we in it. We're in for it. So yeah, if you know someone who does film independently, send them our way. We'll watch the movie. I'll pay to watch the movie. I'll put money on it. I'll pay to watch your movie. Bring your movie in. We'll talk about it with or without you. We'll let you know.
Right on.
Put our money where our mouth is.
So if you haven't already, I advise that you hit the like button or subscribe. Please subscribe and adjust your notifications to fit all, so that you understand when we go live and when videos become available.
Because we're doing this all week long. We don't have a show tomorrow. We don't have a show tomorrow, but we got a show on Thursday.
We sure do. That one. It's going to be a good one.
And Friday.
Thursday
and next Monday.
So Thursday we are reviewing Woman in Black, featuring Daniel Radcliffe. If you haven't watched it, watch it with us.
Good.
And then Friday we have Sako and the Moon Horror Podcast, talking about cryptids in Appalachia. And then the following Monday we will be watching and reviewing Candyman, both the old version and the new version, and making a comparison.
Which I may or may not be here for, because it's Mother's Day weekend and I'd have to watch both movies back to back. So we'll see how much time I got.
Yeah.
Okay.
I only said it 4 times because I'm not having this dude pop up on my computer screen. I'm not stupid. We don't play like that.
Okay. And as Moon mentioned, if you would like to collaborate with us or you would like to contact us in any way, you can find us at Sako and the Moon podcast at gmail.com. So please to be returning on Thursday, and we will catch you a little bit later.
If you dare. I don't know. We're trying to search fair. We don't have a sign off.
We don't have a sign off.
Can pull one out of my butt. Want a writer's insight? Want smart questions and fun, intelligent conversation? Want to support real people and indie creators? Sako and the Moon is your stop. Hit like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to all. And we will see you next time.
We're going to record that. We're going to record that.
I literally, that's what I was looking down. I was literally writing this down.
We're just going to record it and have
I
her
need to do this.
as video. We're just going to hit play and then sign off.
Yeah.
All right, we're out.
Okay. And we're out.
Eventually.
We are, honestly.